Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today I have Elizabeth Melson. She is running for Virginia Senate District 28. It's kind of a little south of Front Royal. It's Rappahannock County, parts of Fauquier County. I got this all wrote down here.
Yes.
Culpeper, Madison, Greene, Orange, and parts of Spotsylvania. That is a big area.
It is. It is.
It's a huge, and it's rural.
It is. My friend jokes. He says it's the size of a small country.
Yeah.
And I definitely went big or went home when
Sure.
I decided to run.
Yeah.
And it is rural. There are some spots towards Spotsylvania and,
Sure.
and that are less so, and some concentrations of residential areas.
Sure.
But it's a farming district. It's a
farming district, yeah.
rural district.
Yeah. So the question I ask all candidates is, why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
You bit off a lot.
I did. I want to run because I'm feeling called to serve my community in a greater capacity. But I've done a lot of advocacy work as a volunteer for organizations related to farming and good governance reforms. So I've been going down to the General Assembly for the last 7 years and watching how policy plays out in the committees and the subcommittees. Mm-hmm. I've worked a few different campaigns from House of Delegate to President, and I've seen it.
Yeah.
And,
so I could do that.
So why would I do it after seeing it, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly, right.
Yeah. And some of my friends and acquaintances in the General Assembly, talking to some of the legislative aides,
Right.
they're like, "Why are you doing this? You see what goes on here."
Well, you look at it, you say, if that guy can do it, I easily can do it. You know.
Well, you see, our senators and delegates, they often throw the term the Virginia way and embellish their speeches with that.
Sure.
And it used to be something honorable and genteel and democratic values and cooperative. Mm-hmm. But there was a book written recently called The Virginia Way, and it describes it as something very different and something with big corporate money influence. A runaway utility company that's the biggest donor to the General Assembly, and the policy reflects that. We have some of the highest barriers to entry for minor parties and independents, so competition is stifled, and that affects the voters. The voters deserve to have more choices and more voices to choose from. Right. So, those are all the things that are motivating me to run, is those policies aren't getting put through. There's reasons why those policies aren't passing, and it has a lot to do with cronyism.
Right. That word's been thrown around a lot, and we look at it, and until you start dissecting it, you think, wow, I didn't realize that.
So many of average people, we're just busy getting through our day-to-day lives.
Right.
We're trying to make ends meet, pay the bills, get our kids to school, and you don't have time to peel back the layers.
Right.
I have been fortunate enough to have my own business that gives me the flexibility to do some of this service-oriented work. And so I've paid attention. Mm-hmm. We have a great nonprofit called Virginia Public Access Project. Citizens can go online. They can look at their candidates. They can see what donations they're getting. They can compare that to the way they vote on bills. And you can make the connections.
Sure. We get the government that we best can afford,
yeah.
or whatever you can buy, right?
Right, that the corporations can buy.
What the corporation can buy.
Yes.
I was talking to another candidate the other day, and I said, they jumped into this race, and they said, well, I didn't realize how much it was going to cost me to do this. And I said, well, did you look at some of your previous candidates that have run? Yeah, that's what opened our eyes. I mean, a lot of them had $1 million in their coffers, and here I'm trying to get by with a few $1,000s.
Yeah, so I've been compared to a David Goliath type of race because the candidate that's considered the incumbent has over $800,000 right now, And, I've brought in about 8,000.
Right.
And then the Democratic candidate, the money just comes to him because
Sure.
he's part of the party. So
Right.
he has about 26,000.
Right.
So I am doing the best I can with the resources I have around my life responsibilities.
Sure.
You've talked to Grace Morrison. She says,
Right.
I'm a mom first.
Right.
I'm a mom first.
Right.
I'm a mom and a wife. I'm a farmer, a farmer's market manager, and I teach yoga at the jail down the road here in
Okay.
Warren County.
Yeah.
So, I am service driven. There's reasons for that, probably psychologically.
Right.
I'm a formerly justice impacted citizen, so I'm been through recovery from substances and alcohol. I've gone through the process of the criminal justice system, and I've come out wanting to be, a functioning member of society,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So I think that propels me forward too. Like I want to constantly be doing good and doing right for my community. So every job I take has some element of service and community building towards it. With it, I should say, like farmers markets and farming, we make sure that we are working in initiatives that address food insecurity. Even at the farm that I manage, we have a community-supported agriculture program, not that you pay into,
Right.
but that I ask for donations for so that we can offer our food as free or pay what you can. And that's the excess that's not being produced for the restaurant that I grow for.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Another farmer that looks like he's taking over the other Senate District 1, Timmy French. And
Yeah.
don't underestimate farmers.
Yeah.
And we are an agricultural community, especially the Valley here. And that's where your territory is in the Valley.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of farming going on, and a lot of small farms. And they're not too many really large corporate farmers like you see out in the Midwest.
Yeah.
100,000 acres, and that's a drop in the bucket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we do have a large farming community, and there's a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes. And when I was talking to Mr. French about it, I didn't realize all the things that he's been doing for the last 20 years. How just involved in working with government and keeping farmers farming. It's just a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So there's a lot of things go on. So what are some of the hot topics that you really want to address if you get elected?
Yeah, so the good governance reforms. We need to address campaign finance reform. We need reforms that make elections more attainable for minor parties and just non-traditional candidates.
Yeah.
And that encourage those that are running, and once they get elected, to be more responsive. So when there's, like mine, when there's 3 or more candidates, I would suggest instant runoff voting, because that requires candidates to win with a true majority. It gives the voters full freedom to express their preferences by ranking the candidates. And it's like a runoff in a convention, but it happens on one ballot in one election.
Right. We've done that in some primaries. And it's worked pretty well.
Yeah, the Republicans used it in
I
their own
looked at that,
conventions.
and I looked at that and said, well, it's like a
tournament.
It's like a tournament,
Yeah.
but you got to work for it.
Yeah.
You mentioned some things. I talked to an incumbent delegate, and we've talked about some of the reforms and elections, and maybe you should make it a little easier to recall some of these crummy candidates and politicians we have. And here's his remark: "Why would we do that?" And
Well, you mentioned Timmy French's
Yeah.
district, and we're post redistricting, right? So we're supposed to be in these more competitive districts, and that's also a reason why I ran, because I thought if an independent can win, like, it should be post redistricting
Right.
when things are more competitive. And we have 4 candidates in running for the Senate that are either independent or minor party. I'd say 6, but it's more actually like 5 in the
Right,
House, because
right.
one is really just a Republican that's fallen from grace.
right,
And I kind of lost my train of thought here. Oh, because I was talking about the SD1
Right,
race. Right. So we're post redistricting, and we saw a lot of political gamemanship. We saw incumbents that got lumped into the same districts together, And we saw them kind of jockey for position. Some of them retired.
And some of them moved into the other district.
Some of them moved into another district. That's where I was going,
Yeah.
right? So David LaRock, right? He moved out of Loudoun to run in this district for Senate. He was in a competition with 8 candidates.
Right.
And now he's running a write-in campaign because it's more like a sore loser type of thing.
Yeah.
You know, they're not able to let go of control.
Right.
And they've lost touch with the reason why they've run.
Right.
So they're maneuvering. They're using their mother's address, or they've rented a house in this district so they can keep representing the people they want to represent.
Sure.
Or stay in power
Sure.
and help
Right.
their party.
Right.
And it's more personal at that point. It's no longer serving the people they're supposed to be serving. They've lost touch with the people.
I ran a story yesterday, sore loser law. I didn't realize we had a sore loser law.
Well, it was proposed. Did it pass?
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the way they talked about it. The way
yeah,
the story was
yeah,
written there. I
yeah.
thought, well, that's kind of an interesting take
sore
on things.
loser law.
Yeah, sore loser law.
Yeah.
You know, you lost your nominee. You know, that's the thing. And we see that a lot even with the parties. They go and they run for a nomination. They lose, and then they say they're going to support the candidate because that's part of every party does that.
Yeah.
Then they don't, and then they'll run as an independent. They'll just go to another party. It kind of tells you. I always say there's a little integrity issue there,
Yes.
and sometimes the public doesn't realize what they've done because it's kind of held under the party umbrella there. You don't really, unless you're involved in it, you
Right,
don't see it.
right.
And I think that's the same
And that's
thing.
the problem with primaries too, is they're very exclusive. I mean, if you look at like a group of 100 people and how many people actually really elect or nominate
Sure.
the person that ends up on the
very few, very
general
few. Yeah.
election ballot, it's like 3 or 5%
Yeah.
actually had any say on who's going to be on that general election
Yeah.
ballot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just think in our local party, you might only have 30 or 40 members show up to the party nomination meeting,
Right.
and there you got, and then they vote for multiple people. So sometimes you could have 10 or 15 people actually selecting the candidate that's going to run. So yeah,
Right. For a district of 65,
Exactly.
17,000
Yeah.
people or 120,000 people if
yeah,
they were Senate.
yeah. So what's next? You got some events planned?
Yeah, so this Saturday in Culpeper at Hawk Newberry Farm, we have a meet and greet. We'll talk about food freedom and consumer freedom and farming and policy-related agriculture. And it'll be a listening session, too. So
Sure.
anybody's welcome. They don't have to just be a farmer.
Right.
We'll have some farm food and trays and appetizers, and that'll be...
Food brings them in.
I hope so, especially local food.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to put all the information below so people can get hold of you. I know our reach doesn't quite go all the way south of in your district, but we have readers all over the place. And I
Yeah.
wanted to give Elizabeth an opportunity to at least get the voice out. I want all the candidates. We've invited candidates from all around our area to come in. Kind of get to meet and maybe even stir up some of our local candidates. Maybe they'll learn something from it as well.
Yeah, I've been watching, and I mentioned Grace Morrison, and I reached out. I followed her campaign after you had her on here,
Right.
and that really motivated me to go, oh, how many independents are running?
Right.
And, I kind of took my own survey of that, and any way that, we could help each other and elevate each
Sure.
other's voices would benefit all the independent candidates, I think.
All right. One more thing. Anything else you want to mention? Because I didn't really cut you off there. So
Oh,
no,
no, I don't think so.
you covered all the grounds. That's good. That's Elizabeth Melson. She's running for Senate District 28. That covers, I want to read it off the list, Rappahannock, parts of Fauquier, Culpeper, Madison, Greene, Orange, and parts of Spotsylvania
Yeah.
County. You've got a area. So get out
Yeah.
there and I would say beat the street, but this one I say beat the dirt roads.
Yeah, the dirt roads, big
Farms.
big
and-
events.
Yeah, big events. There's a lot of stuff going on. So
Yep.
I do appreciate all the independents running. I think that's a movement that will give us better governance, I think.
Absolutely.
Government.
Different perspectives,
I think
different
so.
proposed
Yeah,
solutions.
yeah. Give some more voices because, like I said, we've been controlled so long by a single party, either one, and sometimes we need an independent voice to get our message out. So.
And sometimes they maneuver together.
That's right.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate it, Elizabeth.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah.